Hey everyone, it's Mitch here. Just wanted to make a quick video about our TSR GPS units. Talk about some of the functions that they're capable of and some of the common things you'll come across on a search. So the units that we use, that TSR has, we have 5 of these. These are the Garmin GPS Map 64S models. The 64S series, if you're looking at videos online, all work the same way. They just each have different features, such as one model has a camera, other ones don't have an internal compass, that kind of thing. But the menu structures all work the same way. So if you have any questions about anything I talk about in this video, feel free to reach out directly to me or just take a look online. There's thousands of videos up there if you have any questions about them. So these GPS units are weather resistant. They're not completely waterproof, so if you do drop it in water, it will fail. So we try to avoid heavy rain or using them directly in, submerged in the water. But light rain, anything else, they'll stand up to it pretty good. They are a AA battery powered unit. The TSR ones have rechargeable battery packs in them. This is my personal unit, so it just has disposable batteries, so it runs on both. Something to keep in mind if you're in the field with one and you need to swap the batteries out in the middle of a search, just make sure you don't throw away those rechargeable battery packs. Up at the top on the back of these is a slot for an external GPS antenna. We don't have any of those, so it's not anything to worry about. Spot on the left is a connection point to download or import data to a computer. Mine's already turned on, but if you didn't have one turned on, power button's on the side. Press and hold that, the screen's going to light up, and they usually take a couple minutes to fire up. When you see it turn on, mine's been on for a little bit, so it knows where I am. First, when you turn them on, they'll show your position, which is this blue triangle, but they'll also show a question mark flashing on top of it. That means it's still thinking about, takes a second to think and connect to the satellites and figure out where you are. Once that question mark disappears, it'll stabilize and then it'll show you where you're at. So one thing we can do right away to check our signal quality to the satellites is just touching that power button. Will take you to this screen. So you can see in the bottom right here, that's our GPS strength. I have 5 bars and I'm sitting inside my house, which usually doesn't happen. It usually should be 1 or 2, but 5 bars is good. That's what we want out in the bush. You can also see your battery life and your backlight. If I hit this multiple times, you can't see, but if I keep hitting that button, it'll change my backlight levels, and I'm just hitting that power button on the right hand side. So I'll leave it on full brightness right now, since that's the only one we can really see. These units have 5 pages. So going down to the buttons, this page button allows you to flip through the pages. So if I hit this page button and keep hitting it, you'll see it pops up. There's a compass screen, computer screen, elevation plot, main menu, and a map. And just hitting that button will just pan through the same 5 screens. If you want to go left, you can use the quit button, and it'll just flip through those pages the other way. So the first screen, the screen you'll be using the most is this map screen. This is obviously a picture of where you are, an overhead view to say of where you are on the world. What you're looking at right now is Garmin's default base layer for mapping, which doesn't tell us a whole lot, but what we can see right away is this blue triangle is where you are. The pointy end over here is the direction that we're facing. So this unit, this model of GPS 64S has an internal 3-axis compass. So if I turn this unit, that blue triangle you can kind of see moves with it. So that's telling me which way my unit is facing. And that works by going this way. So whichever way I point this antenna, that arrow is going to point. So sitting in my house right now, I'm kind of pointing it basically west. As I turn that, like we saw before, it's going to change, pointing about north now. And that works whether you hold this GPS flat with the ground, tilt it up a little bit. Not that you can see when I do it that way, but you don't need to hold it horizontal with the earth like a normal compass for that to work. You can have it tilted a little bit and it won't be a problem. Some of the other things you'll see, these brown lines are roads. So Highway 40 we can see here. These little points up in the corner here are some features that I've marked from one of our other GPS exercises, and what their name is, kind of thing. This bar here with the 3K is your scale bar. So what that means is the distance from this end of the bar to that end of the bar on the ground, that is 3 kilometers. So if you take that, move it somewhere down here, just as a visual reference, you can judge distance using that bar. With our buttons here, in and out, this allows us to zoom in and out of our map. So if I push in, you can see our scale bar got smaller now. We're down to 2 kilometers. If I keep hitting in, it's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, representing 500 meters on the ground, right? And if I hit out, we're going to zoom out, and I can keep zooming out to give us the bigger picture, and we can kind of see Alberta and BC there. These two features at the top of the screen, those are set on most of the GPSs. They might not be set on all of them, but they are used for navigating to a point, so I'll cover that a little bit later here. The other thing most of our units are set up with is the Patch Maps card and Bird's Eye imagery. So Patch Maps is a company in town here that has donated some of their software to us. What their stuff shows is they've mapped out a lot of oil field roads, leases, public land dispositions. So turning that on when we're out in the bush, it gives us line work, kind of like these highways for existing roads and leases and pipelines and such that are out in the bush. Whereas Garmin's default map here doesn't show any of that. So just to show you, these are already turned on the TSR units, but from the map screen, from any screen, this menu button here kind of acts as like the settings button for that menu. So when you hit menu, it's going to pop up with a bunch of stuff. So changing your data fields, that's those 2 boxes at the top. So you can change those to a whole number of different things. I have them set for the ones that I find most useful, but if there's something you're familiar with or want to play with, feel free to take a look and see if there's something that works better for you. Really, the only things we're going to use here are that change data fields if you want to play around with that, the setup map, or the measured distance. So going into setup map, we can start looking at some of the settings for our map. Most of ours are set for north means up. So if I quit out of here, when we're looking at this screen, north is always pointing up. It doesn't matter which way I move my GPS, north is always going to be up on this picture. Some people don't like that. So you can go into menu, setup map, and you can use the enter button and the rocker panel to change that, whether you want to use it like an automotive mode, so it'll turn your map and keep you centered facing forward, or track up, which is something you'll see when you start navigating with your tracks. I find north up is the most useful because it always gives me a reference point as I'm walking through the bush or navigating. I'm always keeping track of which way north is, so I find it easiest to continue using that when I'm using my GPS. We can play around with guidance text when navigating, never or always. I only use it when navigating, so that's why I have mine set there. Those data fields are the 2 boxes. You can change that to more. 4, 1, you can turn them off all completely, whatever you want. Some advanced stuff, text size, auto zoom, zoom levels, all this stuff you can play with, but it's not super necessary. And then map information is where we get into that patch maps and bird's eye imagery. So if I go in here, you can see I got certain layers turned on. Enabled means turned on, disabled is turned off. So patch maps right now is disabled. So I'm going to hit enter and I'm going to turn that on. So if I go back to our map, you'll see a whole bunch of other streets have been added in here for Grand Prairie specifically. Going even further, this adds in some stuff, right? So it adds in some water bodies and lakes, creeks, some back roads. But another useful thing about these is we have aerial photos downloaded to them. So if I go back into setup map and go down to my bird's eye subscription and turn that on, now we have satellite imagery overlaid with patch maps, which is kind of grainy and probably easier to see if I hold this in front of the camera. But it gives us another tool out in the field to look at things and see what kind of terrain we're looking at, right? So when you're looking at your map, one thing I guess I'm not talking about, is I'm using these rocker panels, and you can pan around and look at things. What it's telling you here is your distance from your current position to the tip of your pointer arrow. So if you find yourself on the map and I want to know how 484th Ave is away from my current position, I can just pan that pointer up to it and find out it's about 245 meters. If you want to get back to just centered on yourself, if you just hit the quit button down here, it'll take you back and center it back on your point. I think that's about it for the map screen. So next screen is your compass screen. So you can flip to this. It's going to give you your digital compass. It's got a number of those boxes at the top. So by hitting menu, going into our settings, we can change a bunch of stuff if we want to in there. Change those data fields around. Calibrate your compass. That kind of stuff. Sight and go is another function that allows us to pick a direction with your GPS and lock it, and then you can continue navigating on that point. So if you point your GPS, say if you see a feature off in the distance like a cell tower or something you want to navigate to, you can point your GPS at it, go in here, lock that direction, and you can set a course to it, or you can project a waypoint on that line. So set course will just give you an infinite long line in that direction, and your GPS will just navigate you to that line. Projecting a waypoint will ask you a distance from where you are currently along that line, and it'll log a point at that distance away from you, and then you'll navigate to that point. This next screen is your trip computer. So this is like the tripometer in your car. You can calibrate all this stuff for whatever you want to see, what you think might be useful for you. Your average speed, your maximum speed. I haven't really played with these on mine, so they're not set for anything in particular. But going into menu, you can change all those data fields to a whole number of things. Next page, your elevation plot. So as you begin a journey, it'll show you over how far you've walked. It'll show you the elevation you've either climbed or dropped as you go on your hike, kind of thing. So you can track your elevation change
using that screen. And then main menu is where we access a lot of our main features. So the first most important thing that I want you all to get in the habit of when using these is to go in and clear your tracks. So from this screen, Track Manager is where you want to do that. And now your tracks are basically a digital breadcrumb of where you've gone since you turned on your GPS. So if I go into Track Manager here, I have a current track, and then I have a list of saved tracks that I've gone on in the past. So if we open one of them up here quick, this SAR track, I can view it on the map, I can view the elevation plot of it, I can change the color of the line work, change the name of it, a bunch of stuff, delete it. So if I show you quick on the map, this was a search we did a couple years ago in Muskogee Park in town here. So shows you the name of it, shows you the total distance that was traveled on this search from the time that I started it to the time that I stopped it. And you can go in and kind of even just track that line and see everywhere that you've gone, right? Starting at the dam in Muskogee Park and heading down the trail networks kind of thing. These tracks are super important from a SAR perspective because they allow our SAR managers and our team to track where everyone's been. So once you go out into the woods, our SAR managers don't know where we go exactly. We can tell them, but that's only so good. With this, they can see without a doubt that we have walked, or they can at least see everywhere the person carrying this GPS has walked. So super important to keep log of these when we go on an event and save them at the end when we get back to our staging area so that SAR management can download these tracks and save them and review them. So this is only one person, but say we have 5 teams going out all on quads to different areas. 5 different teams are all looking at different spots. When SAR management brings all 5 of these tracks in, they can overlap them. They can see exactly where all of our teams have gone. They can see areas that we've covered really well, and they can see areas that we've missed. So that's kind of the importance behind them. I'm just going to quit out of here now. So when you go into here, I'll go back to our main menu. So you can use those page buttons to get to your main menu. Another quick feature to do is just tap this menu button 2 times and it'll take you there super quick. So as soon as you turn one of these on at a search, go into your track manager, go to your current track, and you want to go down and clear your current track. Clear and hit yes. Because if you don't do that, this thing automatically begins to log a track from the minute you turn it on until you turn it off. And it doesn't change between power off or power on cycles. So if I turn this on today and I turn it on 2 weeks from now, halfway across Alberta, it'll give me a track from Grand Prairie to wherever I am 2 weeks from now. So it's important every time you turn this on is to go in and clear that track. Otherwise you'll be carrying over data that's completely unnecessary for what you're doing. So once you do that, you're good to go. We can go out on a search, we can go for a walk. When you're done at the end of your search, you want to go back into your track manager, go to your current track again, and save your track. It asks you to enter a name for it. It just gives you a default one automatically. So you can use the rocker panel and the enter button to access the keyboard, space button, the arrows, change it to whatever you want, and then you make sure you go down and hit done to save it. So it'll tell you it's saved, and then it'll ask you if you want to delete that current track and start a new one, or if you just want to continue on it. So whatever you do, and you can make the decision at that point whether you want to wipe that data out or continue it on to another one. And we can see here under our list of saved tracks that was the one that we just put in. I don't need that one, so I can go hit enter, go back into it, and go down and delete it. Some of the other things we're going to see from the main menu is your Waypoint Manager. So anytime we log a GPS point or enter one in, you're going to see it it's logged as a waypoint. So if we go into that screen, it's going to load up a bunch of points that I've saved in the past, and it'll also show them how far away they are from my current location right now. You can go down if you want to look at that point with some more info. So if I want to look at bench and hit enter to go into there, I can see what I named it, a note about it, and you can see the location, the coordinate of it. And then you can use Go to navigate to it, or you can use Map just to click on it and view it on your map. You can see that bench point on your map. And if I hit Go here, it's going to start navigating me to it from my current location. Along that pink line is the direction I want to go over to get to that bench. Quitting back to our Waypoint Manager. You can go in here and you can also delete these. So if you go in here, use that menu button again like settings. You can go in and delete your point. If there's photos associated with them, you can change that, but that's not something we worry about. You can move it if you want to change that point to a different location. You can move it and it'll take you back to your map. You can move your arrow and it'll move that point to a new spot on your arrow, which I'm not going to do. Set proximity will allow you to set a radius from a point. So if there's something off in the distance that you want to be alerted when you come into a certain range of it, so you can set a radius based off that point. So if I want to be alerted when I'm 20 miles or 1 mile, let's say, away from that bench, I could enter in 1 mile. And when I walk into a 1 mile radius of that point, this unit's going to beep at me. Lots of different things to play with. Just look through here a little bit. Area calculation, that's something we can use if we want to know the area of something. You can turn that on, walk a loop, and it'll tell you the area of the section that you just kind of hiked. Calendar in here, sun and moon tables, calculator, stopwatch, bunch of different stuff. This satellite button here gives us a list of our current satellites that we're connected to. So this diagram here, this is north, you can't see the end behind it, and we got south down here. This outer circle is our horizon. So we're at the center of this circle. All these green little units are each of the satellites that I'm currently connected to. And you can see down at the bottom here, they each have a number that's associated with them. And these bars are the signal strength that we're receiving from them. It's also a quick way to look and see your current elevation, the accuracy that your GPS unit is at. So right now in my house, I'm at about 5 meters accuracy. And it's a quick way of looking at your current position in whatever coordinate format you're working in right now. Back to the main menu here. So we can go into system setup here and screw with a lot of stuff. You're not really going to have to play around with any of this on each of our units. The display might be one thing you want to play with. You can go in there and turn on your backlight timer. So right now I have mine to stay on all the time just for this video. Normally I only set that for maybe 15 or 30 seconds because otherwise your screen's going to stay on all day and it's going to kill your battery a lot quicker. So that's something you can go in and set so your battery doesn't die. Play with your modes and colors and whatnot, sounds. None of this is super important for what we're going to be using it for. However, the important thing that we do want to see is this position format option. So if we go into here, this is going to tell us what datum our GPS is set to work in. And if you've watched the PowerPoint video, reviewed the PowerPoint presentation, you'll have a better idea of what a datum is, map projection, all that kind of thing. But your datum for GPS is the mathematical surface that it's working off of. So NAD83 is a mathematical ellipsoid that is loaded into a GPS and allows us to get our coordinates off of it. So there's different datums for different parts of the world. If I go into here and we start going through, there's different datums for every country and every continent all across the world. And the reason for that is that they just work more accurately for whatever region you're in. So in Canada, we use NAD83. It's the most accurate one for our landmass. The other datum that is used interchangeably up here is WGS84. It's only a meter different from NAD83. So when you're talking in terms of navigation and these GPS units, they're not accurate enough to account for that meter anyways. So whether it's a NAD83 or WGS84, you can use them interchangeably. Spheroid is already populated based on whichever datum you punch in, so you can't play with that one. But position format is the most important part of this screen, because sometimes working with our agency or other agencies, people work in different position formats. So from the PowerPoints, we've kind of looked at northings and eastings, and we've also looked at latitude and longitudes in terms of coordinates. So right now I have mine set to display latitude and longitude in degrees, minutes, and seconds. So if I hit enter, I can go in there and just pan up a couple. I can change that if I just want it in decimal degrees or degrees and minutes, or for the full degrees, minutes, seconds. You can play between the three of them based on whichever format our other agencies are using. It all comes down to what the search manager really wants to use. So these are going to give us latitude and longitude coordinates. So I'll leave it in this, and those coordinates are in this format. So we're at 55 degrees north, 118 degrees west, minutes and seconds. You can see following after. If I go back to that and would say we're working in northings and eastings, which is what you're going to use to transfer coordinates from a topo map into your GPS, you can go back into setup, back down to position format, and use your rocker panels to pan all the way to the bottom of the list and go to UTM UPS. So this format, if I set it, is going to go and change our coordinate format into an easting and a northing now. So when you enter a coordinate in one, it'll convert between the other one as well. So if you're using a map and you've determined a northing and easting based on your topo map, you've punched it into your unit, but you want to relay that coordinate to somebody in a latitude and longitude, once you have it saved in here, you can just go in to your map setup, down to position format, change that back to whichever format you want to relay it in, say decimal degrees, exit out of there, go back and look at your point in the Waypoint Manager, and you can see it'll convert into that new format. So it's not important which one you enter it in, as long as you're entering the right format for what you're set to. Like if you want to enter a northing and easting, you have to make sure it's set for that UTM. Otherwise, it's going to look at your northing and easting and try to read it in as a latitude and longitude, and it's not going to work. The numbers won't make sense, so it'll give you an error. Let's see here. Okay, so now that we've kind of covered how to change your position format for whatever you want to work in, we've covered tracks. Let's talk about marking a position with this. So right now this purple line is still navigating to that bench point I did earlier, so I'm just going to turn that off quick. So from your normal screen, this mark button down here is what you want to use to log a coordinate. So hitting it when I'm centered on my piece, these are the coordinates that I'm currently at. So this is the quick way just to use that mark button to bring up your current position right now. So you can go in here with your rocker panel, enter button. You can change these symbols to a whole number of different things. You can go up here. This is your name of your point. So you can go in here, use your keyboard. You can rename it to something. Type in a note about it. View your location, your elevation. And when you want to save it, you want to hit done. So if I go in here, let's say I'm at home. Done. Make sure you go down the bottom and hit done and enter. And now I have a number of points saved here from messing around already, but you can see it created a point for home right here on our map. So the other feature with that mark is that if you are given coordinates, so another team is relaying their position to you over the radio and you want to punch them into your unit so you can find them, you use that mark button again to do that. So by hitting mark, we can go in. I have a coordinate for the Grand Prairie Airport punched in here. So let's say we have a team at the airport and I want to navigate to them. So I'm going here. Punch in YQU as a name for this point. Go down. And the coordinate format that I have is in decimal degrees. So you can highlight this section, hit enter to go in there, and use these arrows and the numbers to punch in what you want. So north and west, that'll always remain the same.